Good afternoon. This is Ann Bailey, ethanol producer, writer, and associate editor. I'll be your host for today's Making the Case for Automation, Investment, and Upgrade webinar. Before we begin, I'd like to address a few housekeeping items. After our last presenter, there will be a question and answer session. If you have questions, you can submit them at any time during the webinar using the dialog box. Please specify who the question is for. Questions not answered during the webinar will be forwarded to our panelists who may answer them after the webinar as they are able. I also want to mention that there will be a free recording of the webinar available within a few days after the event, and it can be accessed on the EPM website under the Events tab using the login you used today. I'd like to introduce our speakers. Jason Marquis of Marquis Energy is the Chief Operations Officer and Vice President. Before becoming Chief Operations Officer, Jason served as the Production Manager beginning in 2008. He has implemented an array of capital improvements projects, novel production techniques, and best practices to increase our ethanol yields, decrease our energy consumption, and increase our ethanol production capacity. Jason Hurst is from Trident Automation, Inc. Jason began his career with Moore Products Company as a sales and services representative for industrial control systems. He continued his work as a field engineer for Siemens Industry until 2002. Jason then joined Trident Automation in Kimberly, Wisconsin as a principal. He's a key member of Trident leadership team, and he continues to use his technical skills in customer interactions for sales, marketing, and vendor relations. Now we'd like to have a word from our sponsor.
Trident Automation, where technology translates into productivity. Trident is an independent systems designer and integrator specializing in process control solutions that deliver increased productivity, high reliability, and measurable cost savings. Located in Wisconsin, Trident serves customers throughout the U.S. and Canada in diverse fields such as pulp and paper, biofuels, ethanol, chemical, power generation, hydrocarbon, and other manufacturing. The engineers at Trident have integrated DCS technology at more than 85 process plants and provided support and engineering for more than 100 businesses since they were founded in 2002. Trident is a solution partner with several leading DCS manufacturers, including Siemens. A sharp focus on customer service means experts are available 24/7 to help troubleshoot system issues, and Trident offers customized classroom or on-site training for all system designs. Robust systems, solutions in a collaborative environment designed to grow business. Find it at tridentautomation.com.
Now we'll hear from our first speaker, Jason Marquis.
Thanks, Ann, and thanks for joining the call today and allowing me to be a part. I'm excited to talk a little bit about what we've done here at Marquis Energy and the partnership we formed with Trident and Siemens, and the opportunity to work on upgrading our DCS here several months ago, and just the positive experience we've had and some of the joys and challenges of that process. A little bit of background on our company. We were originally built as a 100 million gallon per year Fagen ICM facility back in 2008. Our family had been involved in north central Illinois for about 40 years now. My father and my grandfather and my great uncle started the business. We were an ag business and primarily working on a lot of logistics and trucking and corn procurement and drying and storage and many other kind of one-stop shop for farmers in north central Illinois. And it was those experiences that kind of positioned us to get involved in the ethanol space. We started construction here adjacent to our barge terminal in Hennepin, Illinois in 2006, and kind of use those things and trades that we had learned in previous entities to get to where we were today. When we laid out the facility in 2006, we actually set up a footprint for 200 million gallon per year facilities, just knowing that the corn in the area was abundant and that some of our logistics advantages could lead to a situation where we'd want to expand. And we started that expansion shortly after opening and got Fagen on site in 2014 and recently wrapped up that project here in Hennepin. And we have capacity today exceeding 300 million gallons per year. A little bit about myself. I've got a chemistry background and started up through kind of the operations side. I always like to say I graduated on a Sunday and started working midnights on Monday. And worked for a while out on the floor as an operator, and then into kind of a production assistant role and into some production management. And now in the role of Chief Operating Officer, I oversee most of our day-to-day responsibilities at our ethanol facilities, both here and in Wisconsin. Just a little bit about our company. So obviously we position here on the Illinois River and U.S. waterway system. Barging was something that we had a lot of comfort with and a lot of experience with in some of our previous work history, and so we had built our barge dock here in 2001, and we're using it for various things, hauling steel coils, sand, grain products, and liquid nitrogen and other products, and eventually thought that this would be a good site to build an ethanol plant. It had abundance of corn. There's over 600 million bushels of corn grown locally, and sufficient natural gas and electricity produced just a mile away from the facility. And so kind of thought this was the perfect site to do it, and so we, like I said, we built that in 2008 and recently got done expanding it. I think one of the kind of cultures that we've built at our facility is one of continuous improvement, and I think we've been willing as a family and company to reinvest into our facility and to identify when there's opportunities to have strong ROIs or to create additional levels of security and updates, and we saw in this opportunity to expand the need to upgrade our DCS, and so that's what we're going to talk a little bit about. For those of you that don't know a lot about the ethanol space, just a little bit, there's kind of three main keys to the story. I think environmental, energy security, economics. We always like to say ethanol is known and needed for its oxygen and for its octane. And the alternatives to ethanol are more expensive, and they're all known carcinogens. That would be something like xylene, toluene, benzene. And so we think it's a fuel that's got a lot of opportunity for growth. You look at some of the opportunities in export markets and in growing the world demand. Right now we use about 10% in the United States. They use about 65% in Brazil, and the rest of the world uses less than 2% ethanol in their fuel supply. And so we think there's good opportunity for growth there. It's a great story for the Midwest, for the ag economy, but also for our country and our world as a whole. I mentioned that we had laid out a planned expansion back in 2006 to kind of double the size of our site. Between our original facility that started production in April of 2008 and in late 2014 when we brought Fagen in to work on the second south unit, we had increased production here at our original facility to up over 155 million gallons per year. And so we currently both facilities are running and well over nameplate capacity, and that has in large part to do with our culture of kind of continuous improvement, but I would also say our opportunity to reinvest into our facility. A little bit about how we got to the decision to look at PCS7. When we were built originally in 2006 and 7, we had installed a Siemens Apex DCS. By and large, I'd say we were very happy with the performance of that relative to some of the other systems that were utilized within the industry sector and the ethanol space. And so we were very happy with Siemens Apex, but I think as we got to considering that it was headed for legacy status and that now was kind of a logical time as we worked on this expansion to kind of upgrade our original DCS system, really started to make sense. And so I would say there's a few pros and cons there for the Apex system, but like I said, I think overall we thought the system was good. We enjoyed the functionality of the system. It had been very reliable for us, but I think we didn't want to get to a point where we had one system running on something that was kind of new and modern and the latest and greatest, and and a separate unit, located 150 yards apart that was on maybe a more dated system. And so we decided to go forward with kind of reviewing different systems that we could utilize. I mentioned just a few of them. The Emerson Delta V was something we gave a lot of consideration to. Rockwell's got a system, and we considered, kind of implementing APAX over on our new build and new construction. I think we kind of wanted to get away from that. It didn't seem to make a lot of sense to implement new construction with a kind of an outdated or a legacy system, or a system headed for legacy status at least. And so the alternative for Siemens was PCS7. Again, I think it came down to the decision of, do we have one plant running APAX and 150 yards away we're running Siemens PCS7? I don't think we thought that made sense. We felt like if there's ever a time to kind of make the change, it's probably now. And so Fagen got mobilized back out here in October of 14, and we made the change to our DCS on the existing North plant, or North unit, in August of 2015. And so our operations team was able to get up and get comfortable at a facility that was already operating, that we understood well, and it really kind of helped our transition, I think, when we started up the South unit, to have been running PCS7 on the North unit there for a few months. I mentioned, so we went with PCS7. We felt like, I think the biggest driver there was the familiarity with the players. I think we felt like our rep there, David Meyer at Siemens, represented us really well. We felt like he was a good communicator, and I think despite the fact that Siemens is a big company, I think we felt like we had kind of good communication, and David got us access to the right people. And so I think that was a big part of it. I also think, having a good experience with Siemens APAX was certainly there. I think if to liken it to, guys that drive a Chevy truck and enjoy driving their Chevy truck are probably likely to get another Chevy truck when they get a new one. And so we felt like, we liked Siemens. We thought it was a good system. We really thought the functionality of Rockwell's, Plant PAX and Plant PAX and Emerson's Delta V didn't offer any significant improvement over what, technologically, over what Siemens had to offer in PCS7. So we thought that made sense. And I'd say, a big part was our relationship with Trident, and we can get into that more later. But I think we thought they were a group of people and that we wanted to do business with, and so we felt that made a lot of sense for us to kind of continue that and focus on them. I mentioned David a little bit in our Siemens, and like I said, I think he was knowledgeable, and when Dave didn't know the answer, he was honest about that and found the answer quickly. And so we felt like he advocated this for us within a large organization. Trident, like I said, was somebody we had done business with. They were utilized heavily when we were originally built back in 07 and 08, and so they had done a lot of DCS work for us. I think, for us, I think they were cost competitive. I think technologically they were savvy, but I think more importantly than any of those things was, I felt like they had a high level of integrity. I think in the 7 or 8 years that we've been doing business with them, they had not been perfect, but they owned up to things. When they made a mistake, it wasn't the blame game of trying to find somebody else. And there was a few times where we had interlocks that were kind of out of place, and their principals would be on the phone at 2 a.m. helping us figure out what they were, and staying late until 10, 11, 12 o'clock when they were doing service work here, and we just felt like they were the kind of guys that we wanted to be partnered with. And I think we knew going into this that changing out of DCS, something that has and touches and feels every component of an ethanol plant, I think we felt like that was a big deal, and we knew it wouldn't be perfect. And so I think more important than trying to find the right technical capabilities, we felt like finding the right people who kind of stand by their work, who kind of, work on it until it's fixed, work on it until it's the way that it should be. That was really important to us. And so, going with Trident was a no-brainer from that perspective, just seeing that they had done such a great job for us in the past. I think in terms of where we're at, I think we're thankful that we kind of made the decision to change when we did. I think it was dealing with a small headache sooner rather than a very large headache later. And I think, rather than kind of punting on third down and waiting to have a bigger issue and dealing with different systems and our staff not being well trained on APACS versus PCS7, I think it made a decision to do PCS7, and I think we're thankful for that. I think my biggest piece of advice, if I were to go through and do it again, is get somebody you trust, get somebody who when it's 7 o'clock at night and you run into the issue, they're going to answer their cell phone, or they're going to have somebody ready, willing to help, who's capable and knowledgeable. I think most of the people who are in the industry and in any industry can relate to the customer service desk that shuts down at 4:30 and you don't get anybody till 8 a.m. the next day. I think for a facility like ours, where you're talking hundreds of dollars a minute for every minute you're down, that's just not a viable solution. And so having people you can trust and who can deal with the hiccups that are certain to happen in a change-out like that are available. So that's a little bit about the changes that we made here, and we'll be happy to talk a little bit more in depth, and certainly Jason Hurst with Trident has the technical knowledge to explain it. One other thing that I didn't mention was kind of Trident's ability to meet our objectives. And I think one of the big objectives we had for our facility was not only that we'd be able to get to them after hours and that they would work through our difficulties with us, but I mentioned it's hundreds of dollars a minute for an ethanol plant to not be producing, and so we felt like keeping our turnaround time short and sweet was important. I think when it came down to being able to do a 60-hour maintenance turnaround and have Trident kind of fully get us changed over with their kind of unique cabling situation and their capabilities there, I think that was a big appeal to us. And I just think that functionality of them being able to do it quickly, but also I mentioned the relationship we had with them. I think the other thing that I can say was when they told us it would be 60 hours, I was highly confident that it would be 60 hours. I think when you're dealing with somebody that you don't have that relationship and history with, they can tell you it's going to be 60 hours, but you still have to kind of wonder. And at pick whatever number you want to use, good margins or bad margins, at $100 a minute, it gets pretty costly when somebody's telling you that a project of this size is going to take a certain amount of time. I think you want to know that you can trust them. And so we felt like we had that with Trident, and we're thankful for the decision we made, and be happy to take some more questions once Jason gets through his presentation.
Thank you for your presentation, Jason. Now we'll have a message from our sponsor, Siemens.
Siemens has partnered with Trident Automation to provide ethanol producers automation solutions that provide 7 billion gallons of ethanol annually. Trident is a Siemens certified solution partner, meaning they have access to the highest levels of Siemens support. They meet with Siemens product management to discuss the future product roadmap and have trained and passed the Siemens certified exam. Trident is our trusted partner for installing and supporting Siemens automation systems.
Jason Hurst now will give his presentation.
All right, once again, thanks everyone for attending this webinar. I'm Jason Hurst. I'll be providing an integrator's perspective to the DCS upgrade and options that were presented to Marquis. Maybe, there we go. I started my career in 1996, starting out in process automation. I'm a mechanical engineer out of University of Wisconsin-Madison. I've been working in the service industry pretty much my entire career. I've applied a lot of the other technologies. We're very heavy into pulp and paper here, but I've applied a lot of that knowledge here. We're going to continue through and talk about the benefits of Trident's. And as you can see here, Trident Automation is an independent professional services company specializing in process control technology solutions that deliver an increased productivity, high reliability, and measurable cost savings. It's a big deal in the industry to be able to provide the services that we do, and hopefully most of our customers are working with us because they want to, not because they have to. As far as the providing support, you can see on this next slide here that we provide quite heavily on the Siemens DCS, but we also provide for these other manufacturers as well. I'd be happy to talk with any one of you about them afterwards. Our services, skipped one. So from full greenfield installations to maintaining your current control system are kind of Trident's breadth of knowledge. We focus on continuous process control. We also work with other companies to better serve our customers, including MPC with third party. We also do internal MPC with Siemens controllers, advanced regulatory control with OpEx control out of Dayton, Ohio. But the main focus here is pretty much that we're available 24/7, and we like to make sure that we're feeling your pain. So anytime you do call, we do try very hard to take care of your site in a very timely manner. All right. As you can see from this map here, the ethanol experience is quite extensive. We do service other industries, but as far as the ethanol goes here, we basically add value add. We actually have bolt-on products we support and manufacture here. 122 ethanol plants in the last 14 months have been on. We have 35 of those plants. We've done a phased approach to it where we just replace the HMI. We've got some replacements that we've done the full plant, 4 plants there, and then there's also a desire in the ethanol industry and other industries to go virtualized, and we've done that at an additional four plants as well. So just as far as the other experience that we do offer a full range of products for ethanol, and that ranges from products like CivPac, which we developed in 2008 to better help with the control of the molecular sieves. We have a lab system that we put in 2009, followed by KPI, which is a key performance indication system, which was developed in 2011. And then after that, we developed a Workbench suite, which allowed you to have a graphical web-based user interface to the lab KPI DCS information at your desktop. Remote devices as well, tablets, cell phone, if you did have VPN access. These products are pretty much all DCS indeterminate, which means they can be installed and configured to work with any platform. So we were very excited to have Marquis Energy approach Trident and invite us to bid. We felt like we could provide a great solution for them. Like Jason had mentioned earlier, we've been working with them since their inception, and we really, like I said, we're very excited to get into this and offer them some solutions. So the following slides will basically, I'll go through and explain kind of what we presented to Marquis and what options we offered in the quoting and the solution/results page, to end up there. So as with any job, there's definitely requirements, and Jason alluded to some of those earlier. You'll see there that we had some time constraint issues right up front. They wanted to have this accomplished in their standard turnaround, which we felt we could meet. Like I said, this isn't our first rip and replace. We've been doing this for quite a long time, and we have a pretty good track record of being able to meet the customer's timelines. We did work with our customers' needs to, apologize, that's on a timer. I don't know why it's doing that, but so we did have the requirement of a virtualized system in there. Secure access to the DCS was a big plus for them. And there were some improvements we wanted to make around the other interfaces that they had to either Rockwell or ABB, any foreign device interfaces. And it was important to the customers that we use standards, and that's what that APL standard is down there, Advanced Process Library. And then we do certify all our engineers here at Trident to ensure that I know what they're doing, and the customer can feel rest assured that they're passing rigorous testing that Siemens provides and gets certified out in Germany. And the other closing point is we do have a UL listed panel shop here, so the panels can also be made here and shipped to the customer, and rest assured they're to a standard as well. All right, so the two options that we presented that we felt Marquis would be interested in were a phased approach, which is a very common approach that's out there right now, where you basically have a cost-effective, no-risk solution. It allows for us to run both systems concurrently, and there's literally no risk. There's zero downtime with that solution, and it does allow you to kind of get your operators set up to an HMI that they're comfortable with, and then can later transition into the full PCS7 package without changing the HMI, which is the human machine interface, the graphics part. The second option is the full rip and replace. There's some definite advantages to going with a full rip and replace solution. Some of those are your alarm management, which Siemens is very heavy in. They follow the ISA 18.2 guidelines. Like I mentioned earlier, there's the APL. There's smart networks. There's advances, with future expansion, you can utilize smart MCCs if you want. You can utilize standards. They also, Siemens does have in their controller essentially a built-in MPC block, which we're going to be investigating with Marquis as well. And then on top of that, they offer an advanced HMI visualization, which is basically what you're kind of seeing on some of those graphs there, spider graphs, grayscale type of stuff, red only in the case of an alarm. And we'll go through some of that later if you like. All right, so kind of visually how this this phased approach works. If you're looking here, you're going to see that you have kind of the standard HMI offering. With your clients, they might be multi-screen, it might not be. You'll have your basic historian, you'll have your connection with your IAM here, which is the industrial Ethernet modules. That's the gateway, if you will, to the APAC system. Some of the challenges you have here are legacy PCs, where you have just old technology. Anything revolving around Microsoft PCs, they tend to flip those out so fast that your DCS kind of seems to fall behind a lot quicker than it used to in the past, which leads to your legacy operating systems. In the case of Marquis, we were kind of stuck at Windows 2003 server, partially because the IO server, and because that's what the platform ran on. Then another drawback they had with the Wonderware is it's a third-party HMI, which means it needs an IO server to talk to it, so it doesn't natively talk to the control system. You have to have a little device in the middle there. I already mentioned this one, the no support past Windows 2003. And the biggest one, I think, is the security concerns. So what happens here is you got a legacy operating system running, and more people want access to their data, which, through cell phones, tablets, or whatever, VPN access, and this becomes a big concern with legacy operating systems. It's really easy to get viruses pushed onto these. So in the phase approach here, what we did is we looked at basically just looking at the HMI and the PCs portion here. We essentially remove that, come in with new, offer extended, screen capabilities, if you will, quad displays, faster servers. We can support the newer operating systems here. Siemens software now is sitting on top of Siemens hardware, which is really key. It's just a straight API command here, where you don't have to have a third-party IO server. A really big one here as far as downtime goes, there's no downtime. We've done 35 of these style upgrades with zero downtime. This is also the first step in the phase approach, which means, just HMI replacement followed by a hardware change at a later date at the comfort of the customer. And the systems can run concurrent. So what this really means to the plant is they can basically have their operators have the old system sitting right next to the new, and if, kind of a security blanket type of an issue, or if they really feel uncomfortable with the new graphics, they can flip over to the old until they're more comfortable, then we can come out and pull out the old system. So they can run concurrent, which is a big plus. And as always with everything nowadays, you have a virtualized option in this solution as well. All right, so the next phase would basically be to replace your hardware, which I've circled here. This step is usually a little more intrusive to the plant. This is where you're going to probably start to encounter a little more downtime. You can't lift wires without getting into some downtime. So we pull out the APACs, the IEM, the controllers. We basically put in a new control system, which is the PCS7 that you see there, new I/O. You'll see here that we have the HART capability now. We've left the discrete I/O alone with our cabling solution, which basically means really reduced I/O checkout time. We've introduced HART Smart capabilities now that Siemens provides on their I/O. Didn't have that with the APAC system. And now you've got the ability to start using Profibus devices, PA, DA, through links. You can get into smart motors. There's some other things in there. Remote I/O is a really big proponent of going with the Siemens PCS7 solution. So now instead of having junction boxes everywhere, you can basically land your I/O right out at the instrument. And you can bring asset management in now with the HART capabilities, with providing some asset management software on the engineering station and the 2 servers. And like I said earlier, Smart MCC, which I know was a requirement of Marquis because they're doing it in a new plant and they want to have the capability of doing that in the existing plants as well. So they now have that offering. This slide here, I just kind of wanted to show you the phased approach has some other advantages. You could, if you didn't want to spend the money, basically keep your old system in place and do all your expansion through PCS7, and you'd have a common HMI interface between the 2 systems. That's definitely one of the advantages of staying with Siemens is you don't have to remove your old assets. You can keep them, and they are quite a robust hardware platform, and they still function and provide control. It's actually pretty easy to train. Like I said, this is a very flexible offering. Along with these solutions, Trident basically has a set of value adds that we put on these products, like I alluded to earlier, CivPack. But if you want to add enhancements to your system, we do have solutions that basically hook up to your lab system, bring that right into the DCS, gives you reportable data now, kind of at your fingertips. You can see how you're doing. We have a KPI solution, which is a key performance indicator, so you can benchmark, look at strategic calculations and make decisions based on what's happening now, not the next day when you get your report out. And we have that Workbench solution, which sits on top of that, gives you a quick way to get in. And then we have high performance HMI objects, which we'll go through. That's spider graphs and that type of stuff later. Like I said, these can all be added, but the value add stuff, the trending that we do, the new faceplates, the ethanol specific symbol base, that's all something we provide to all the customers that work with Trident. All right, keeping costs in mind, this obviously is a big deal for pretty much every customer I've ever worked with. You definitely want to try to reduce costs if you can. Leveraging Trident's experience, I think, is probably the biggest reducer of cost that's out there. We just have the experience in this industry. We know what we're doing. We can help you from just past experiences get things done. We can identify what you as the customer might need to do, and we can draw on past experiences to reduce this, get the timeline down, work with you to get things set up on time, and then, like I said, give you options on a phase 1 or phase 2 or a full rip and replace solution. Risk analysis is a big part of the cost savings. You know, if we can identify your risks and work with you, we can basically help to mitigate things and speed things up if we know where the risk lies. The phase 1, which is we always call the on-the-fly install, there's really very little risk to that solution because everything's already redundant in the system. We can on the fly basically flip everything out. The only risk that we really see is there's reboots required. But as far as the controllers go, there's nothing touched there, so there's no risk. Installing a new piece, like I said, redundancy there, so no risk. In the second phase, though, there is some risk. You know, we do have to unterminate the analog wiring, but the discrete is held onto with a cable solution, so there's no new loop check there we have to do. And as always, we do like to do a lot of training. It is a new system, so we usually stay on site for several extra days and give training one-on-one to each operator, which has been very successful. We started out doing training to the entire class and you know, the entire site at one time, and that didn't seem to really work out. So we found that sitting one by one was a better way to go. I apologize for the slides advancing here. So as far as responsibilities to the customer, this is something we feel pretty strongly about, getting involved with them and letting them know, you know, what's expected of them and how we can work together to make this solution, you know, the best that it can be. And Marquis had a great staff and a great team assembled for this. They made everything on our end go quite smoothly because I think they were very well prepared on their end as well. And part of what Jason alluded to was the cabling solution, and they went on to request the virtualization, which was key. So we laid everything out. We had FATs we went through, so we were very well prepared and made this project very successful doing that. As far as timeline goes for the different phases, you know, back here we work on your configuration, everything 6 to 10 weeks. Phase 2 is 12 to 15 weeks it takes for completion. But essentially, all that prep work makes for a very short on-site install. You can see 6 to 10 days there for phase 1 and 9 to 10 days for phase 2. And we do the full switch over in 60 hours, but we do stay on site for a long time to make sure that everything runs smoothly after. It's not a taillight warranty where we come in and get everything up to snuff and then leave. We want to make sure the customer is comfortable several days after the install. This is a point where we might do additional training, and then if any decommissioning is needed, we can pull out the old system there as well. So in summary, we did meet their requirements. I think we delivered quite a solution for them. Like I said, I think we were done in 58 hours, which was, we had the 60-hour window, so we did utilize most of that. But it was a successful install, and I think Jason can attest to this. We worked together, you know, as two companies, and we came up with one great solution. So I'd like to thank everyone for listening to me and attending to the webinar. There is a fuel ethanol workshop coming up here in June. You can see at the bottom of the screen there. If any of you are attending that, I'd welcome you to come to the booth. We'll be presenting the Siemens solution there at booth 928. So we'd really welcome the time to talk to you, one-on-one. And then next here, we're going to go to the Q&A. So I'd like to just put up a picture of everyone. Hopefully this slide will hold, and that's the faces of who you'll be talking to. So if you do have any questions, please direct them to the people that you see there. Thank you.
Thank you, Jason. And we did have a question come in from William Hearn, and his question is, what SIS safety functions were included in the upgrade, and how did you determine the scope?
I'm sorry, I missed the front part of that. Can you say that again?
What SIS safety functions were included in the upgrade, and then how was the scope determined?
The scope was mostly determined by Marquis, but there was not a lot of safety in the in the system because the BMS was handled outside of the DCS upgrade.
Okay, and I had a question for Jason Marquis. Looking ahead 15 years to try to select the best technology sounds interesting. Can you share other insights into what is to be expected to be common in 15 years?
Well, if I knew everything, I probably wouldn't even be working. But I think you know, in terms of things of where we're going, you know, I think one of the focuses that we have at our facility is trying to kind of decentralize a little bit kind of our operations base. And so I think, you know, getting all of our data to be viewable from tablets, finding solutions to be intrinsically safe, you know, kind of out in the facility in terms of wireless routers and those type of applications. I think one of the main drivers that we kind of see in one of kind of the evolution of where we think kind of the industrial space is going, and specifically our staff, is getting them to utilize, getting our operators out on the floor utilizing technology to make themselves more efficient, to kind of help us have a better set of data and do some of those things. So, you know, I would say the two places we see kind of going is kind of the decentralization of a control room system and being more, you know, rather than having one person around the board, having people kind of running areas. I'd say the other thing is, you know, kind of one of the implementation kind of benefits that we saw was the utilization of smart MCCs. And so being able to have an immense amount of data accessible through our DCS system, trendable through our DCS system, I think we saw that as a tremendous asset. And so, you know, part of this change was incorporated to utilize kind of that more recently developed technology. So I would say that the two sides to my answer there, one would be, you know, getting the use of, you can call it a tablet or a mobile device, utilization kind of increase throughout our facility to help us with that data tracking and analyses of, you know, utilization and equipment and so on and so forth. And then I'd say the second component is utilizing some of the, you know, kind of the utilization of Profibus and other technologies that are kind of just getting out there into the market, you know, finding a way to use that data not only for it to be relevant, but also for it to provide value.
Thank you. I also have another question that just came in for Jason Hurst from Hank Britton, who asked, what issues do you encounter given the different forms of the PID control evaluation when migrating from AP-ACS to PCS, and do you have resources to handle this?
Yeah, that's a good question. Thank you, Hank. That's actually something that's quite interesting because we do have to take that into account. When you go from one platform to another, you do have to look at the PID equation and make sure that your tuning characteristics can transfer to the new system. Something like minutes per repeat or repeats per minute can really make a difference in your loop. So you do have to take that into account, and we have gone to third-party companies, you know, to help out if we needed to. But for the most part, it is something that we do look at and is a serious part of our, you know, off-site, if you will, in Trident house work that we have to perform.
And Jason Marquis, I had another question for you. Your company received efficient producer status from EPA, which requires collecting data daily. What information do you have to collect for EPA, and how's that working out with the new system?
Yeah, that's good. Thanks. So we do have to utilize the new system. Obviously, like you said, there is daily tracking requirements. It's primarily around any impact on your carbon. So I mean, your big ones are, you know, corn usage, ethanol production, natural gas consumption, and electricity usage. And so as part of the efficient producer pathway, there's, you know, several aspects to kind of keeping up with that. And I do know the CC's kind of been a big help to that. We had to install some additional equipment back in 2012, 2013 on the north unit, mostly to track electrical consumption and kind of identify where we were utilizing that electricity. And so with the Smart MCC, that was something that was kind of built into the system. And so one of the things that we're able to do now is through some of the, I think it's the SQL servers and other places, we're able to pull some of that data automatically, import it into a spreadsheet, which kind of daily tracks our carbon intensity and greenhouse gas calculations relative to the gasoline baseline. And so what it's done is it's kind of minimized the amount of time that we have to have somebody go in and mine for data, and it kind of queries it automatically. So I think the new functionality, or PCS7, and some of the value that it provided was the ability to get that data a little with less headache, more consistency, and save some of our staff significant time in terms of making sure we're up to date on that data.
You gentlemen had mentioned that you wanted to perhaps address topics a little bit more during the question and answer. Is there anything either of you would like to add?
Yeah, this is Jason Marquis. I can add, I'll say one other thing that I didn't mention there in my presentation, but that I think is what creates or what gives us comfort about Trident. I think obviously they've got way more expertise kind of in the DCS realm. I think one of the things that's important to us is feeling like we're not putting ourselves in a position where that A, we're going to be held hostage to a company, or B, if Jason Hurst steps out in front of the proverbial bus or decides he's moving to the Grand Caymans, that all of a sudden we're in a horrible position. So I think them establishing the kind of some base characteristics. I think more importantly than that is, I think what we've experienced with Trident is that they're data sharers, that they're teachers, and I think there's kind of two types of people out there in the world. There's people who feel like they know something, and so the fewer people who know what I know, the better off I am, and kind of the easier it is for me to maintain that business, and they can't go to anybody else, and they're kind of held hostage to us. And I always kind of like to say we love to fire those vendors and get rid of those people. We always kind of prefer to deal with people who are data sharers, who find value and who know the content well enough that they're able to articulate it to unintelligent folks like ourselves and explain how things are working and why it's working a certain way. I don't think I ever sensed that Trident was worried that we were going to go out and try to do what they were doing for us, or do that service on our own and cut them out. I've just never gotten that sense from them. They've always been willing to kind of share the knowledge, to answer any question, to dig as deep as we wanted to dig. And I think at the end of the day, what we found is the work that we're doing with Trident is work that we think they're able to do it more cost effectively and better because of their experience. But I don't think I feel in any way that if there's a component of what they're doing right now that at one day when we adapt to that technology or get to a size where we feel like that's a service we should do in-house or whatever, I've never felt like they were ones that would keep us from being able to kind of minimize what we need them for. Rather, I feel like they're willing to work with us, and I think that can be rare in this type of industry where technology is always changing, and you have to kind of stay on top of it. And so I would add, I talked a little bit about the integrity that they had and those things, but I would also add that their willingness to teach and share information is something that we place a lot of value on with regards to our relationship with them.
Thank you. I have another question. Can you comment to the cybersecurity countermeasures, for example, ISA 62443, implemented in the network to guard against the risk of cybersecurity vulnerability?
This is Jason with Trident. We do actually address cybersecurity, more of the SP99, but kind of the security actually has to start here. We do have a lot of remote support to our customers. So we are a single point. We offer multi-level security here. We can't even get into the customer's database to see what the connection credentials are without logging into another server, and that server would email our cell phone essentially. So now that we have to add that, append that to the password. So we do offer that to our service, as part of our services. However, a lot of our larger customers actually take a lot of that cybersecurity on themselves. But as far as the PLC stuff goes, there are internal audits we can do on that, and we do work with Siemens to help make sure that happens, and that's a defense in depth strategy.
All right, another question. As important as the controls are to an ethanol plant, I would imagine the cost of a new system or even upgrading is small consideration over the concern for disruption and need for retraining. And this is for Jason Hurst. You've done a few of these, and what are the most important factors for doing it successfully?
The most important thing for doing it successfully is planning and making sure that you're working with your customer and making them feel comfortable. No one likes someone to come in and just do all the work and not tell you what's going on. So I think just communication is, one of the key factors in making sure these jobs are well. And then along with that, I guess just hiring good staff. I have a great staff behind me, and they're knowledgeable, they're caring. It's a big deal, but I like to make sure I got the right people on staff to help make this work, and I like to work with customers, not for them.
And Jason Marquis, can you talk about the training Trident was offered as part of learning PCS 7?
Yeah, so we had some of our instrument techs go up to, it's not Appleton anymore, it's is it Kimberly, Wisconsin, up to Trident's headquarters, and so they did some classroom training there. I think that's maybe for a more in-depth level and understanding. I think for our operations staff, a couple of steps that we took. One, Trident allowed us to utilize a kind of a trainer system, and so we had a kind of a fully functioning DCS in our control room for about a month prior to actually changing over our original North unit to PCS 7. And so I think for the guys to be able to click and play around on there, I think that was beneficial. I'll also say that Trident built some extra functionality into PCS 7. Some of the functions of PCS 7 we didn't feel were as good for us as what was being offered in APAC, some trending functionality and stuff. And so I think the other thing is Trident built some of those tools for us to kind of utilize that Jason talked about, and so I think that was helpful. I'd say the other thing is, it comes down to that culture, like I was just talking about. There are people who are willing to share what they know, and so I think it was for about 10 days after we started up on the North unit, there was a presence from Trident in the control center. And so I think part of it is, when we ask a question that's kind of simple, or you ask a question that you just asked 2 hours ago, when you've got a culture built like Trident has of being helpful and customer oriented and we'll do whatever we take to help you out, I think it gave a comfort level to our operations team and to our board operators and our team to be willing to ask questions, and whether they're complex or simple, we felt like there was good answers. So I would say, the training was threefold. It was, before on an in-depth level with IT and our instrument techs up at Trident's offices. There was kind of the mock DCS that we had in place in the control center for a month or so before we had the changeover. And then it was, once we're changed over, there was the consistent presence of Trident there to kind of help us learn the system and utilize the new components, but also answer questions about, how do you do this or how do you do that.
Question. Another question. The upgrade was projected for how many years?
Was that a question for
Yeah.
who?
Well, actually, there's no person designated, so this comes from a listener.
Okay, and what was the question?
The upgrade was projected for how many years?
Yeah, that's a tough one, Jason. I don't know if they mean how long did you know you were going to upgrade, or do they mean how long is the upgrade for? I guess the upgrade should be for the foreseeable future, because you guys are on a support contract. You get all your new software every year if you stay on that. So I guess if that's what they're looking for, how long is this upgrade good for? It's for the foreseeable future. There's no horizon, or I guess no twilight in. Yeah, it's their flagship. So.
Yeah, we're on one of the earlier versions of PCS 7. So PCS 7 isn't headed for legacy for a while. I would anticipate, or I would hope, and I think that's what Siemens and Trident have communicated to us. So I think we had planned to make the change in 2014 and made the change in August of 15. So I think we knew that the change was coming for about a year. And in terms of how long we project to be on PCS 7, you know, I don't know if the answer is 10, 15, or 20 years, but it's one of those.
Thank you. Is there anything else you'd like to discuss before we wrap it up?
This is Jason with Trident again. I just wanted to state that, you know, if people are interested in training like Jason and Marcus alluded to, it's something that we do like to shed the light on that mystery box called the DCS. And I know there's in the participation list there are some of our existing customers, and it's something that we pride ourselves on. We like to share the knowledge. We like to make sure our customers can work with their own system, that they're not kind of slave to us. So it's something we pride ourselves on, and so if there's any interest, we're happy to oblige.
All right. Well, if that is all for the questions, I'd like to thank you for attending, and a special thank you to today's sponsors, Trident Automation and Siemens, and remind you that there would be a $250 discount for general registration to the IFEW Workshop and Expo. The code is webinar, and that's for full conference registration only. And then our upcoming events are the Ethanol 101, Knowing the Industry You Serve, on June 20th, the IFEW workshop, June 20th through the 23rd in Milwaukee, the National Advanced Biofuels Conference and Expo, also the 20th through the 23rd in Milwaukee, our webinar GMO Yeast, A Journey Through Discovery, Handling, and Practice, on June 9th, and our webinar Biodiesel Distribution in California, Policy, Taxation, and the Carbon Market, and that is June 30th. All the webinars are at 2 p.m. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Great job, guys.